Hey guys, welcome back to Creating Creators Podcast. On today's episode, I had a chance to sit down and talk with Savvy Meek. Savvy is a graphic designer based in the Birmingham area, and Savvy has a really unique style as well as an amazing energy to her. Savvy creates or specializes in brand identity, specifically introducing a very unique, whimsical style to a lot of her characters as well as sort of her marks. Savvy shared her incredible story of sort of a creative family and also sort of her progress as a creative herself. I really did enjoy meeting and getting to know Savvy Meek, and I think you will as well. Check it out. Savvy Meek, is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yes. So Savvy's a nickname.
Right.
My born name is Savannah Meek. But Savvy came around when I was a kid. It was a family nickname, and I was called Savvy G. And I decided when I was about 8 or 9 that that was going to be my artist name.
Yeah.
And so I would always sign all of my work Savvy G. And when I was about 14 or 15, when I set up my iCloud account, um, I set it up as Savvy Meek, totally forgot about it. And then I started applying to internships out of college, and all of these creative studios were like, "Savvy is such a cool name for a designer. Like, that's great." And I was like, maybe I should capitalize on this, and I'll just go as Savvy from now on. So when I moved to Birmingham, I started introducing myself as Savvy, and it stuck. So all my friends here know me as Savvy and not Savannah.
That's great.
Yeah,
I've got a cousin whose name is Savannah, and
yeah,
she also goes by Savvy.
yeah.
Yeah, I guess is it popular to spell Savvy specifically with two V's?
No, that's just me. I
Okay.
just thought that that was fun and clever. It's like she knows what she's doing. But she's a savvy designer,
Yeah.
but also it's her name. So
Well, I think that same cousin, spells hers with two V's. So it's sort of
yeah,
interesting. But I think that is for her like a family nickname. Her brothers, she's got quite a few brothers, and I think they all refer to her as Savvy. Her mom and
yeah.
dad do. So I think it's a great one. And your let me say this: like looking at your work, and we'll talk some more about it later. I really went in sort of a little bit more so than I had yesterday, just sort of going in and looking at the kind of stuff that you do in preparation for this talk. I love your work. I really
Thank
do. I mean,
you.
it's beautiful. It's got that it's got that sort of what would you say? Sort of like friendliness to it, but then at the same time, like it's obvious what you're drawing. Does that make sense? Like
Yeah.
it's that cartoonish kind of feel at times. Um, oh, I have no idea what's going on behind me right now.
Oh, fireworks would be great.
Uh, I've got. I keep saying I'm going to turn that off. I haven't turned it off yet, but it keeps. I guess the web. It's not even a webcam. I'm not using the webcam, but for some reason, my
It's just it can pick up that you're really excited about my stuff and you think it's really
evidently,
great.
yeah. But no, I really. We'll get into it soon. But seriously, I was telling my wife last night whenever I was looking through some of your stuff, I was like, oh my gosh, like she's really good.
Wow,
So
that means so much to hear. Thank
yeah,
you.
I love it. So, all right. Well, without getting too much further into talking about your work, I do want to go ahead and sort of go through a couple of questions with you
Yeah.
because I want to get to know you a little bit. We've already talked about your nickname, who's now sort of your artist name, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk just in general. Tell me where you come from. Tell me just a little bit about who is Savvy Meek.
Okay. So I grew up in Jacksonville, Alabama, and was born and raised there, kind of out in the middle of nowhere, in a very tiny little neighborhood. Um, and I really liked living there. I liked that small town feel growing up. I feel like it gave me a lot of time to practice what I am now very good at. I'm an only child, so there was not a lot of like siblings around. And so when I had downtime and free time, I was just drawing. So I drew all the time from the time I was very little, just filled up sketchbooks. I loved watching Disney movies. I would like try and redraw all the characters. I was a bookworm. I read a ton, so I would want to draw the characters that were in my head. And when I was in about sixth grade, I started having some health problems. And so my parents pulled me out of school to homeschool me. And my mom was always really good about being like, what are you passionate about? What do you really like? Let's make sure that you spend an hour a day working on that, to that you're going to build up something that you're proud of and you're excited about, and you're going to build a skill in that way, which is something that I'm very grateful that she did. And so she was like, you love drawing, you love illustration, you love Disney, let's look into some online courses that incorporate those things. And so we found an online course that a Disney concept artist created. It's called the Oatley Academy, and Chris Oatley is his name. And he teaches people how to digitally paint in Photoshop and like make concept art. And so I would do that for an hour a day, and I would take his classes from the time that I was probably about 12. So I had a little bit of a jump start into like the creative suite and like Adobe and all of those things, because my mom's a graphic designer and my dad's more like in business. So they both run their own businesses. So kind of from the jump, I knew that I wanted to do my own thing long term, and run my own business. And so got very into illustration. And then when I went to college, I was like, I want to be an illustrator because this is what I love doing. This is what I'm really good at. And then they were like, totally 100%. If you want to do that, that's great. They were like, we would encourage you to look into the design track because you're going to have more job opportunities a little bit easier if you go the design route. And then I was like, okay, I'll try it. And then I realized that I really liked design. And not only did I really like design, but I had kind of a little bit of an edge over other people because my illustration skills were so strong. Um, and it was fun. I could pair design and story, which I love, with illustration, and I could make things that other people weren't thinking of making. And so that kind of helped set my work apart and helped me to figure out the direction that I wanted to go when it comes to client work and things that I really want to be doing long term.
Yeah, the stuff that you design for brands
Yeah.
definitely seems. I mean, I can see the influence of your sort of I guess your art at the same time, because it does seem sort of almost whimsical at
Yeah.
times in ways. So,
Yeah.
and I can definitely see sort of that admiration for Disney in a lot of your
Uh-huh.
work. That's what I told my wife when I was looking at some of your sketches. I was like, I mean, you can see this like Disney quality. I mean, you literally draw princesses, like some of the Disney princesses at times,
Yeah.
and it just looks incredible. It really does. Um, something that came to my mind. You were talking about your experience with Adobe, I guess, at sort of an early age.
Yeah.
Um, I came out of a history background. I was a history teacher
Okay.
for most of my career, but back in high school and early college, I had a youth minister who was a graphic designer, and he was the kind of guy that his designs he would draw out. Now this was back before iPads, so he was drawing in Illustrator and that kind of stuff using the pen tool, or I don't even know what all Illustrator was available back then.
Right.
I didn't know it, but whenever I got the chance to teach marketing, they told me, "Hey, you can credential in Adobe, like for your students." And I the only thing I knew of Adobe was Greg Key, this old youth pastor of mine, and
Right.
I was like, I mean, he was amazing, and he created such cool stuff. I was like, I want to do that, and so that started me learning how to use that software. But like your kind of designs, a lot of it reminds me of him. Just that because he was sort of that way. He was an artist, but at the same time a designer. And
Right.
that pairing seems to go really well, especially when you look
Yeah.
at the tools that we have today. Like, I mean, just the tablets and pencils that are available.
Right. And I feel like a lot of design is solving problems. So if you can come at it from whatever your perspective is, whether that's an illustrator, a painter, and you can have, style preferences and things that inform your decisions, but you're still solving the problem of your client, you're going to get some really unique stuff.
Yeah. Did you have is it a grandmother that's also an artist?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So my dad's mom, Helena Meek, she's an oil painter, which is very cool.
Yeah.
She lives in Buena Vista, Georgia. And so when I would go visit her when I was a kid, then she would be like, "Come on, we're gonna go paint in the studio," and that was always fun. I always enjoyed doing that.
Did you learn early on some painting techniques from her that you still use now, or do you feel like that was something maybe that you appreciated after you got into your own kind of art?
I think I appreciated that a little bit more after I got into my own art. I mean, I would see her like maybe once or twice a year growing up, when we would go to the farm and we would hang out with them, and she would show me some cool things. And then I got more into painting probably high school. I would take some classes. There were some classes in Gadsden that we would drive to Gadsden and I would go take art classes there. And that's when I started getting more into fine art. And then in college, I took a lot of illustration and painting classes in college.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting just as I was going through. I mean, I stalk a little bit on Facebook,
You should.
especially. Um,
100% you should.
and so one of the keys is I search up last names in people's friends,
Yeah.
and so with you having the name Meek, I searched that up and I was like, here's this lady that seems like it's probably her grandmother.
Yep.
That's a painter as well. I wonder if that really fed into. I mean, if nothing else, I would imagine that fed into like an artistic ability, maybe for your dad, and then could have
Yeah.
trickled down to you. Or I didn't know how close you and that grandmother were, possibly.
Yeah, I think some of it is genetic. I think I think it helped my dad cuz he saw his mom doing that. So he's more business mindset, but he's married to a designer and his mom was a painter and so I think he's like, "Yeah, you could do this, you could make something out of it." And he's always been very supportive, so I appreciate that from
Yeah.
him.
It's always scary when your kids go into careers that you think that's going to be very limiting, you know?
Yeah.
Especially when we're talking college time at all, because then you're like,
Right.
not only is that limiting, but that's potentially a big giant waste of money. so,
Mhm.
speaking as somebody who doesn't use their degree at all right now, um, it's one of those things. I think a, like I said, a lot of parents almost are timid and want to push their kids in other directions. So that's really cool that your parents were able to sort of hone your skills and find ways to make it more marketable for you.
Yeah. It really did help long term.
Yeah, and you you've probably had their experience to sort of build on as far as like, okay, well, this is how you do your own business.
Yeah. Yeah, so, especially once I went freelance, they were the, speed dial on my phone quite often. Like, "How do I set up this contract? How do I solve this problem if this client isn't happy?" Like, and so they're a really good support system that I can call and talk through things, and they'll help me, like, figure out business strategy and, like, goals long term. Like, they're big on courses. They're like, "Take the course. You will save so much time and energy taking a course from somebody who knows what they're talking about rather than just trying to figure it out yourself and save money." They're like, it will be so much better long term. Like, do your research, make sure it's a good course.
Right.
But if it's a good option for you and your business, take it.
Yeah, I mean, I've learned everything off of YouTube. So
Yes.
that's,
So much off of
yeah,
YouTube.
yeah, it's amazing how much we have available to us free. And then in
Yeah.
addition, so many of these online courses are relatively inexpensive. I think a buddy of mine just bought one like a day or two ago that was like a $60 course that, I mean, if he's able to maximize it, it's going to make him way more than $60
Yeah.
over a relatively short period of time. So that's great. Great advice just in general to get into those online courses, whether free or paid.
Right. I
Yeah.
mean, if you can find it on YouTube, do that. I've done that so many times when a client's like, "Oh, I need this specific web button to change colors on Squarespace." And I'm like, "Yeah, I got you." I'm like, "Google how to change web button." And it like brings up the code. And I'm like, "Okay, great. I can plug and play this."
So speaking of that, what all services do you offer? And as you can tell, I just changed to this new question about your
Yeah.
journey. I'm curious about your professional journey. So I guess that's two questions again,
Yeah.
like the what services do you provide, but then also I understand you worked at Telegraph at least at some period of time.
Yes.
So I'm curious to know after college, what was that journey for you?
100%. Okay, so services that I offer, I do branding and illustration. I do Squarespace websites too. So a lot of the times people will come to me, they'll be like, either they're rebranding or they're starting a new company and they need a brand kit. And so for that, I'll work on a whole guide of things for them. So it'll come with several different logo iterations, it'll come with color palette typefaces, and then I make them like a brand guideline so that they know how to use their stuff after they're done with me. And then what else do I offer? Squarespace websites. Yep. I do those to go with it. So like right now I'm working on a law firm and I did their whole brand kit and now I'm working on their website. So everything goes together and feels very cohesive. And then illustration wise, I just did my first screen printed poster, which was really fun. I teamed up with Allie from Peachy Keen Inks, and this client is a local wine distributor, and they're called Vineyard Brands.
Yeah.
And they wanted a screen printed poster that's an illustration of downtown Birmingham with like wine elements mixed in. And they're sending it out like as a gift to all of their employees across the country. And they're putting like together a goodie basket of a bunch of different local Birmingham goods. And so
Was
they've reached out to me.
was that the one that had all the beavers in it supposedly?
No,
Oh, okay.
that was Telegraph.
Okay.
That one was for Yellowwood. They wanted a backyard party
Yeah.
poster,
Yeah.
and they wanted like all the different kinds of projects that you could make with Yellowwood that would go in your backyard. And they wanted it to be like Where's Waldo,
Yeah.
but it was instead of Where's Waldo, it's Where's the Beavers. And so you have to like find the beavers in the poster. I thought that was so fun. It took so long to draw, but it was so fun.
I just came across that last night. Oh, here's pieces of it. Let me pull that up. Yeah. Yeah. So this
Mhm.
was, I guess that's the full design, right?
That's the full poster,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. And then I think I saw one of the specific posts you made. I guess identified one of the beavers.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
there's 5. That's like my rough sketch
I
when I
love
first
it.
start.
I love to see
Yeah.
that. I love to see the process in general, and
So
we'll talk
fun.
about that a little bit later on. But yeah, any behind the scenes or just like the steps it takes, the iterations of things is
Yeah.
always cool to see.
So I think overall, I help people tell their stories through branding, illustration, and website design. That's my main 3.
Yeah. Well, again, I mean, this kind of stuff, I just think I think it's so cool, mainly because it's not a skill that I have at all, but it's a
Yeah.
skill that I admire, especially whenever it's done well. And I think your stuff, like I said, looks incredible.
Thanks.
So tell me again, sort of your journey
Yes.
over like your career. Maybe what did you ultimately do in college, and then maybe from there.
Okay. So ultimately in college, I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts with a focus in design, graphic design, but also very illustration heavy. So they have us work on a lot of really fun projects in college, and they always encourage us to apply for different awards. So I started applying to the Addies, and this was I've won I've won 7 Addies total while I was in college.
What
And I
college?
won. I went to Jacksonville State
Okay.
University,
Yeah.
and my hometown because
Yeah.
I got a scholarship and I got to live at home and I didn't have to pay a lot of money.
Hey, that's really smart.
Yes.
My twins are 16 right now, and I've been trying to tell them. I was like, we live in Shelby County. I was like, Monteval is a great university, and
Right.
they're offering a nursing program now if you're interested in the medical route.
Yeah.
And so, but then they're like, Dad. So,
You're like, I want to go. I mean, like, I get it. Um, but yeah, so won some awards there, and then I think it was COVID. They didn't have the in-person awards that year. I think it was maybe 21 because I think the awards are usually like January, February.
yeah,
And so they had like it was pretty much the awards over Zoom, and they had a chat feature. And I typed into the chat feature because I'd been applying to internships everywhere and was not getting much feedback back. And I needed one for school. They were like, you need to get an internship. It's really important that you get work experience. And so I got on the chat and I was like, if anybody is hiring, I would love to be an intern. And then the next day, they sent out an email telling everybody that had won an award that was a student, that they were going to be doing a special interview series with all of the different creative agencies in town. And it was essentially like Zoom, but with tables. So it was like Telegraph was there, Cayenne was there, Big was there, Lewis. There were several. And you would go on and you would just try and click into a table as quick as you could to be able to interview with somebody. And so I like you'd have your portfolio ready. So that was all prepped and ready to go beforehand. Thankfully, my teachers at school were like, you have to have this prepped well in advance, and they did a good job getting us ready for that. And then I talked to several different people, one of them being someone from Telegraph, Dave, and he was like, yeah, your stuff is great. What do you want from this interview? And I was like, I want an internship. And he was like, okay, like we're going to talk to the people and we'll get back with you. And then I think within 24 hours, I was there I'd gotten an email for my first round of interviews. And I think I was like 3 rounds. And then I got it. And so moved to Birmingham for 2 months and went and did that every day. And I loved it. Like, I loved the team there. There was such great energy. They had me working on really fun projects. Like when I was there, what was something I was working on? Oh, they were working on murals for the Protective Stadium.
Yeah.
And they had this VR mural that they were doing at the bottom of the stadium that says it's magic here in Birmingham. And they needed concept art for it that they were going to send to a studio that was going to design it in 3D essentially, so that when you held your phone up to it, it would come alive. And so they were like, go research all these cool places in Birmingham, make us some drawings. So I did all of the concept art for that. I picked all of the locations, and then I got to be like in the client meetings while they would pitch it, and they would be like, this is the bridge at the botanical gardens, and this is the carousel at the zoo, and like how it would come to life essentially. And so I really enjoyed being part of that team. And then they asked me to come on full time after college. So I went back to finish my last semester of college, um, worked on my senior show project, which was so fun. One of my favorite projects I've ever done. I don't know if you want me to side tangent, but
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
really
No, we
cool.
can definitely do that.
Okay. So in my senior show,
Can I
I worked on a
find it
project.
on your social?
Yeah. I think it's on my website. It's called Spin Me a Yarn. It's on sunsparkcreative.co
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
my
Let me,
professional website.
I will pull your page up right now. And then
And
going down to your portfolio.
okay, so it's Legendary Tales Grease if you click on
Yeah.
that book.
I've got this
So,
cat showing up later on in
yes.
our slides, I think, if they haven't
Yes.
already. Um,
So I love brand mascots. That's one of my favorite things to do, because I feel like they really help people connect with an audience. They're personable. They provide a face for your company. So this was my senior showcase project. They said for your senior show, they were like, we want you to do something that you just love doing, that you would be like a dream project for you to get hired to do. And I love books. I've always loved books. I love Greek mythology. I think subscription boxes are so fun. And so I thought, how fun would it be to do an illustrated book for kids every month where there's this character and he travels all over the world and he learns all these stories and he comes back and shares what he's learned with the kids. And it's a monthly subscription box that you get every month in the mail. And so Legendary Tales Grease was the book that I made for that, and Trip the Cat is the main character, and in it he goes to Greece and he learns all about these myths and legends, and then he tells them back to the kids like in his own voice. And it's something that's like very positive and inspiring, but also educational. And so I got to do all the things I liked. I got to brand it, I got to design the packaging, I got to write and illustrate the book, and do a website. And this was all I did for like 3 months. I ate, slept, and breathed this project.
have you
But I
tr-
was just so happy.
have you tried selling this at all?
I have not. I want to.
Okay.
I don't really know about the right way to go about it. I think like I probably a Kickstarter would be great. I don't know. I need
Let me
somebody
make
who
let me
knows what they're
make a
doing.
suggestion. Let me make a
Okay.
suggestion. Just talk to the guy, okay? Billy Ivy. Okay,
Billy Ivy.
Billy Ivy. He used to work for Big. He was like a creative director at Big, but he now he just started a company just within the last year that basically is a self-publishing company.
Cool.
He published a book with a company, and that process just didn't go quite like he wanted it to. There was a
Right.
second book that he sort of was prompted to write, and rather than publishing it through the traditional route, he basically created an organization that is sort of backed by people, and then he publishes through that new organization. Now he does video content as well as book content, and I say that not to say, "Hey, go publish through him," but I'm saying he's been through that journey and could
And he would be a
probably
good person.
share some information. And he's a local guy. He lives in the Oak Mountain area, if you're familiar with
Cool.
it.
Yeah.
Andy's a great guy. I interviewed him before, and then I've worked with him in my full time job before as well. But he's a great guy. But this is beautiful, and I think even if, from what I understand, the way that the publishing traditional route goes, basically you give the concept and then you
Yeah.
sell the concept and then you
Right.
go back and actually flesh it out. But
Right.
that's after you've already got basically it sold.
Yeah.
And what you have already, I don't know how much of it's written, but I mean, this would sell. I feel like it
Yeah.
would. So it looks
I
great.
mean, everybody's always so excited about it. And I have been looking more into publishing when I have free time, and I went to my first conference in Birmingham
Yeah.
earlier this year to kind of learn a little bit more about that world. But yeah, that's something that's in my side pocket. That's like, oh, when I have downtime from design work, then I jump back over into kids publishing because that's something else that I want to do long term. So
Well, it's beautiful. It really is. I love this. The fact that I mean, I don't know if this was something that you had experience with, but it seems outside the box, even though it contains a
yeah,
box. But because I don't, when I think of a design project, the first thing that comes to mind is nowhere near a monthly book subscription.
yeah.
You know, so that's something I just think, I don't know if it was something that was prompted by experience or whether it was something prompted by the class.
So it was inspired by a couple people. One of my friends in college, Megan Lee, she did a subscription box and she was 2 years older than me. So when I saw her senior show, I was like, you can do subscription boxes? This is so cool. I want to do a subscription box. And then Claire Keene is one of my favorite artists. And she did a podcast episode. She does all the concept art for Disney's things like Tangled and Frozen and things like that. Her dad is Glenn Keane, who designed like Tarzan and Beauty and the Beast,
Wow.
and they're very cool, heavy hitter design
Yeah.
family. And I heard her in a podcast once, and she said when she was in college, her senior show was a illustrated book of fairy tales. And I really loved that concept. So I was like, what could I combine that's an illustrated book of something that I love with a subscription box with branding? And then that's kind of how I ended up on that idea. Basically, when I come up with things like that, I do what I call as a mind map. And I just have a notebook and I'll start with like one word, like things I like, or 3 words. And then I just draw lines out from there and I just write down whatever comes in my brain as quick as I can. And you try not to think about it and you try and fill up the entire page with ideas. And then from there, you take a break, you go for a walk, you come back and you pick the things that stand out to you the most and you go with those ideas.
That's cool. I mean,
Yeah.
the process behind brain mapping or just
Hmm.
like throwing words on paper. Nowadays, it feels sort of foreign because how many times do people write? You seem to have a
Right.
pencil in your hand quite often.
All the time.
Every time I pick up a pen or pencil now, it feels like a little bit of a foreign thing. I'm like, do I even
Yeah.
remember how to write?
Yeah. It's weird being in a digital age now with things like that.
Yeah, well, the Apple Pencil obviously I think is an advantage for a lot of people,
Yes.
but nothing quite translates or nothing quite matches the tactile feel of just paper and pencil.
Yeah. So it's good to have an analog practice, I think. At least it helps my brain work better. If I'm all digital, I can't get to the ideas that I really need.
Yeah. And something is really neat and nostalgic and even just documented well whenever it's on paper. And you think about one day your kids, your grandkids would be able to pick up those very same books that you held in your hand.
That's so
And
wild to think about.
isn't it? But it's cool. I mean, like we've got my grandmother practically raised me and so many of my cousins, um, and we had these books where she used to keep VHS tapes, right?
Right.
These, I mean, she would record TV shows for us and movies for us. I mean, the FBI probably would have raided her house and she would have gone to jail. I mean, the amount of like recorded content we would rent movies and she would put it in one VCR and record it to another one so that she would have it and never have to rent
Yeah.
again. You know, I mean, it was totally illegal. She was basically a bootlegger of movies, but she had this huge collection of them, and she had this book, this notebook that she would write down numbers and then names of the movie, so that she wouldn't have to write on the movie itself or the
Yeah.
tape itself the name of the movie. She would just be able to categorize it, and then she had all these movies in order of numbers. Um,
Wow.
it was wild, but just looking back at that notebook and seeing her handwriting and seeing like little notes that she would put next to things, it's really really neat. So
That is really
yeah,
neat. What a
so
cool memory.
yeah, and one day your kids will have probably something a little bit better than just bootleg movie titles.
Yeah, they'll have an incredibly large collection of sketchbooks to inherit because I go through them very quickly.
That's funny. Yeah. Well, again, your work. I mean, I do want to get more into it. So,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I want to know about this time when you. I mean, you worked at Telegraph full
yeah,
time. I understood.
right. So, finished college, finished that senior show project, then moved to Birmingham, started in Telegraph January of 22, and great experience, really good experience. Learned a ton, worked with some awesome people. And I think that that was a great way to come into the city, to meet a new group of creatives, because I think it would be hard to come into a brand new city, know no one, start freelancing. I think you would become an island very quickly.
Right.
I think part of the great things about being at an agency is the creative community that you get with that. You get a lot of people that have a ton more experience than you. They can see things in your work that maybe you didn't see, or things that they want to hone and make better and improve. Um, so yeah, it was a very good experience working there.
I've
And
interviewed. Let's see, Dustin Harrelson,
yes,
Madison Bullock,
hmm
Jannard. Those all went through Telegraph.
yes,
Were those? Did you work with many of them? I know they were pretty heavy on the video scene. Did you
yeah.
work with video much?
I didn't work with video much, but I saw them every day,
Yeah.
and we would all go to Taco Mama together, and we would walk to Red Cat and get ice cream, and they were part of. I think of it as like the golden era of Telegraph. Like there was a time where everybody that was there was a heavy hitter, was excited to be there, was amazing at what they did, and it was a really inspiring environment to be in, to watch the work that would come out of that agency at that time.
Yeah, I was following it on social media. I remember, like, I followed Dustin because we have a mutual friend. And I think when I saw him go there, from that point forward, I really followed Telegraph. I think I was already following him a little bit, but just seeing his content as well as following theirs, it's all, I mean, during that period of time, with those people specifically that I was following, it was really impressive the kind of work they were doing,
Yeah.
but also the environment. I mean, they were doing
Yeah.
those casual Fridays where it's like graphic tee Fridays and
Yep.
stuff. It seemed like just a really fun environment to be in.
Right. So at that time, they were really big on culture, and they wanted it to be a fun place to work. And yeah, Graphic Tea Fridays were a big part of it. We'd have themes every week that they would tell us in advance, so that we would like have a T-shirt that was prepped. And for that reason, I have an entire drawer full of graphic tees because I would keep buying them because I was like, oh, I need another one for this theme.
Right, right.
But yeah, it was really fun. And then a bunch of them started doing their own thing, and then I think I was there for about a year and a half, and then I decided that it was time for me to go do my own thing, and that was
I
scary.
was gonna say, how was that? Because I mean, I've been in the, like I said, in the classroom, and then I've done video um, really for the past, I guess, 6 7 years. But every year, it's one of those things. I'm not in the classroom anymore. I work at the district level, but and I do video and photography for the school district. But it's like every year I'm thinking like, should I step out? Should I do my own thing? But then it's
Yeah.
like, wait a minute, I've got insurance, I've got retirement,
Yeah.
I don't have to go drum up work. Like work comes to me every day
Mhm.
if it does. And if work doesn't come to me, I still get a paycheck. So it's like that challenge of going from like everybody says what, like a W-2 to suddenly on your own.
Right.
That's
Right.
that's a that's a fearful thing, a fearful step to take at times. How
Yeah.
was that for you?
It was definitely scary. It was a big jump, because you're right. It's like you have all the security. You're like, my bills are paid if I stay here. I don't have to worry about the things that I would have to worry about if I was on my own.
Right?
But also, it was kind of always my goal to go freelance. And at that point, I had met enough people in the industry. I had enough connections. I had people coming to me and being like, "Do you still want freelance work? I've got some." And so I wasn't really working on projects that I enjoyed as much at Telegraph at that time. And I was not feeling inspired. I was feeling more drained. And I thought to myself, I can stay here and work on things that do not light me up inside, or I can jump, be uncomfortable, but be doing things towards my long term goals and things that are going to really make me happy.
Right? Right?
Um, and so that outweighed staying in the comfort of that.
Yeah.
That being said, I had saved up a good bit of money for as like a pad of like, okay, if I don't have work for 6 months, I'm okay.
Right?
Like, I had been kind of cashing it away as I had been working there, so I had that savings built up. So it wasn't an impulsive just, okay, bye, see
Right?
y'all. It was the long term plan. Um, but yeah, definitely scary, but definitely worth it now. I'm like, I'm so glad I made that decision.
What's been one of your most challenging aspects of being freelance?
I think for the first year, it was getting consistent work.
Mm.
So it was very feast or famine. It was, oh, I've got 2 or 3 branding projects. This is great. And then now I have nothing for 2 months. And so it was figuring out the balance of putting enough into my business and investing in myself, whether that's through design work, through, building up my website, building up my social media, making connections with people in the city, like going to get coffee with people who know what they're talking about, who have been in this industry, getting their advice, and then reiterating that along with making sure you're doing an excellent job with your clients, that they love working with you, that you're giving them quality work, that you're fast and always happy to talk to them, and really are a problem solver for their business. Like, I try and think of myself as not just, oh, I'm coming onto this project as a designer. I'm like, no, I'm coming onto this project as a teammate to help you reach whatever your goal is long term.
Yeah. Well,
And then even thinking about them, like, after the project is done, like, if something comes up and you're like, oh, they could really use this, like, make sure you're emailing them things, not just like, hey, do you have any work? Like, hey, I saw this and made me think of you. I would love to solve this problem for you. If you want to be involved, we can do it together.
that's a really great follow up to people, because I think a
Yeah.
lot of people do struggle with that idea of like, all right, I've done this work for this client. We have the relationship. How do I keep that relationship going if it's
Hmm.
not in like a retainer type setting?
Right.
And that's a really great way is when you see something that could be useful, or you know of something that could be useful for your client, sharing it with almost that exact verbiage that you just used seems more genuine and more helpful than like predatory. It's like, yeah, I'm not hunting you down. I'm
No,
helping
like,
you
I
out.
always want my clients to be happy to hear from me and not like, "What's this girl? She's asking for work again." Like, "Oh, you already paid you."
Right. Right. Well, no, I think that's a great piece of advice, I think, for anybody to just make it more friendly and helpful than needy and like I said, predatory almost.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was big. The other thing that I think really helped was I started doing creative swaps with other people in my industry. So instead of being like, I need you to pay me my fee for this, they would have a skill that I needed and I would have a skill that they needed. And then I'd be like, let's just swap and then we'll both benefit from each other. And then you build a relationship with those people. So, like, for example, my friend Miranda Ivy, she's starting her digital marketing business. And I needed help with my social because I'm really good at making the creative for my social. I'm not as good at planning things out in advance because it feels overwhelming. And so I was like, I'll do your branding for your new company. You come in and help me with my creative and with my digital marketing and we'll swap. And that has been so beneficial.
Now, is she managing your actual social content?
So she helps me come up with ideas for my social
Okay.
and then I make the creative to go with whatever the content is.
Yeah. Well, I love and we haven't talked about all your, I do have something specific on this page that I want to talk
Yeah.
about soon, but not quite yet. But I love the sip and sketch.
Yeah.
Man, I was saying last night, I was like, I wish my daughters, one of them would go to this, or if I could go to this, I would love to go to this because I think it seems like such a great, I mean, just to be able to learn with somebody, but also in sort of like a friendly atmosphere.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to draw, but I'm a terrible artist, I feel like. But at the same time, I also feel, I think with the right techniques that if you learn them, a lot of people can get a little bit further along in sketching than they realize.
Yes, I 100% believe that. I don't believe that illustration 100% is a talent. I think it is talent to some extent, but a lot of it is just practice. It's like, could you read when you first picked up a book as a
Right.
kid? No,
Right.
because you hadn't learned. You didn't know the steps. You didn't know what the letters meant. You hadn't put in the practice to get good at it. It's the same thing with drawing. Like a lot of it is just logging hours of practicing.
Yeah. Well, and this is a class that you're offering the end of July.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I think this video will come out after this.
That's all right. We're gonna do one a month,
There you
pretty
go.
much.
Okay.
From now on, until we don't. I
You're
mean,
talking
it's
about the sip and sketch, not this
yeah.
podcast episode, right?
Yes. The sip and sketch
We
is
can.
gonna stay at
Hey,
Make.
Savvy can just keep popping up
Yeah.
and creating creators podcast over and over
Mhm.
again. I like it. But then also, I thought this was a great idea. This, I don't know if this was through her
Yeah.
or if this was your
Yeah.
idea, but
So this was her idea. She's come up with such great ideas. Her brain is wired this way, and I'm like, yes, this is a great idea. She's like, you go to coffee shops all the time because I have to get out of my house. I can't stay here and work all day every day. I would go crazy.
I
I like
get
to
it.
talk to people. I like to meet new people. So she was like, every time you go to a coffee shop, take some pictures, write down what you like about working there, and we'll start a little series of highlighting the places that are fun to go to and that people enjoy and like what the benefits are of those places. And I was like, that's a
Well,
great idea.
there was one that you had on. Let's see. Was it? No, that's work. That's outfits. Let's see. Where's the other one?
Is it that lime green one that says work remote?
Where do you see that? I'm
Go back up just a little
sorry.
bit. No, you're good.
Oh, right
Right
here.
there.
Yes. And where was the coffee shop? Oh, the East Pole Coffee. I had not
Yeah.
heard of this. I interviewed Jared Brasher, and evidently he lives really close to this place.
Yeah.
And I saw him post this picture. Like we did an episode. He posted that very picture like later in the day after the episode, maybe that evening, and then I was like, where in the world is this coffee shop? I've got to go there. It just
Hmm.
aesthetically looks amazing. He told me where it was. I was heading to Gardendale the next morning, and I was running ahead of schedule, and I was like, I'm gonna pop into a coffee shop, and then I just happened to look it up, and it was really close by, and that place is amazing looking.
Gorgeous in there. This is gorgeous.
Matter of fact, I think I sat right where you're sitting for this picture
Yeah.
because it's that like
Yeah.
first seat just as you come in, and the way the light comes in the morning, and then the
It's so
curve
nice.
of that bar, it really is beautiful.
It's really good. And the baristas there, so sweet.
They're very
Um,
nice.
Shout out to Lindsay because Lindsay's great.
Yeah.
They'll like if you get tea there, they'll re-steep your tea twice, which is great. So it's like you get 2 cups of tea
Yeah.
for the same.
Well, and
Price.
they did some seasonal drink. I can't remember what it was, but it was incredible, and then at the same time beautiful. The way that I think it was a maybe some type of cappuccino, or I think it was a cappuccino of some
Yeah.
sort. But it was just beautiful the way that they designed it and poured it. So props to that place in general, but also
Yeah.
just props to the idea of finding beautiful places in the Birmingham area that are not just like nice places to go with free internet possibly, but just beautiful, inspiring places as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I think of my coffee is like, that's an expense that not all people are like, "Oh yeah, you shouldn't go out and buy coffee. That's not a good investment." But it's like, but I'm getting out of my house. I'm meeting some other creatives. So I've met clients at coffee shops before too, when they like happen to see what you're working on, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, is that the boil?" And you're like, "Yeah." They're like, "Oh, by the way, I needed an event. I need to do illustrations for an event or branding for an event." I'm like, "Yeah, I got you." So it's like, it's worth it in that you're getting out of your house and meeting people and making connections, and it's worth the $8 fee for my lots.
hey, you don't have to convince me. I love coffee shops. I've
Yeah,
I've got
yeah,
this goal that I want whenever I guess I'm hoping our lives sort of slow down at some point as our kids get older. We have 4 kids, my wife and I, and definitely things are busy at times. But I told her not long ago, I was like, my goal is that we can go out regularly for morning coffee and just explore the various coffee shops, even if we have to drive
yes,
like 2 hours to find a new coffee shop. I'm like, let's do it. Let's
yeah,
just explore them.
that's fun.
Yeah,
That's a great way to spend the day too.
I agree. I agree. All right, so let's talk a little bit of your work. I think it's neat
Yes.
that we've been able to already touch on some of this, but your the work that you do, like I said before, is just gorgeous. I'm curious some of the ideas or even like the type of businesses that you might be doing this for. But first, I want to talk about your hike Beham, because
Yeah.
this is evidently more of like a passion project for
Yep.
you, as
Hmm.
well as says a little bit about your I guess time away from work. So tell
Right.
tell us a little bit about the reasoning behind this, the need behind this, and then also sort of the actual logic behind the design.
Okay, so Hike Beham is twofold. It is, like you said, it's a passion project, and it is also fun time that I hang out with my current friends and get to make new friends along the way. So that's been really cool. I think I had a little bit of a slow season last fall, and I was trying to figure out who my ideal client was. And I was like, I love doing something that is a little bit outdoorsy, something that is going to resonate with people, something that's like a business that includes families and is very approachable and open. And so I settled on glamping companies, because a lot of glamping companies don't have good websites, don't have good branding, but they could make something that's really cool if we wanted to. So I started reaching out to people on LinkedIn that I could find that had glamping companies when I would research them. Made like a giant list of glamping companies, and then ended up hearing back from a couple. So I do have a couple clients now that do that. And at the time, I wanted to prove that I could make something that's kind of in that vibe of like outdoorsy but approachable, family friendly. And so that was the design aesthetic that I wanted for Hike Beham, is to prove that I could do that. And then it would be a portfolio piece that I could show to these clients to be like, this is kind of what I would like to make for you. That
Yeah.
also included a brand mascot, because I wanted to do more brand mascots and prove I could do it.
Do we have a
And
name for this brand mascot?
yes, that brand mascot, his name is Huckleberry. We let everybody do a vote on our Instagram about what we were going to name him. And I said, the only caveat is that it has to start with HB to go with Hike Beham.
Yeah.
And so we had everybody vote, and then we did a Beagle bracket where we would like have the names compete, because we had so many submissions. And I was like, how do I pick from this? I'll just let them pick. And then so that got turned into some fun content. But Hike Beham got started because I love hiking, and I was having trouble finding a hiking group for people our age in the city. We found a ton on Facebook that were like people in their 50s, and I was like, I want to go hiking with some 20-year-olds. And I had a couple girlfriends that also all liked hiking, and they had all told me separately, we like hiking, we want to go. So I made a group chat with them, and I was like, we should go hike together. And we started doing this about once a month, and we loved it. And one of the girls in the group, Abigail, she said, "Hey, what if we turn this into a club and I'll help you and we'll be co-owners or co-founders of the club and we'll do it together and we can do it twice a month and that won't be too crazy, but it'll be enough, that we'll get some good exercise. We'll meet some people." She's like, "Do you want to do the branding? And I'll help you with like planning and getting things organized." And I was like, "Yeah, that would be great." So she got the handle Hike Beham and she sent it to me and she was like, "I got it. It's Hike Beham." And I was like, "Okay, great. We don't have to figure out a name." And it just really took off. And we found out there's a ton of people in the city that also were looking for the same thing. And they were so excited to find it. And we had an amazing turnout. Like our first event, we had like 40 people show up,
Wow.
which was very intimidating because I felt like I was leading a parade of people through the woods. But it's been really fun. We've met a lot of great people that way. Uh, we didn't end up having one in June because it was so hot, but I think our first one in July, we're gonna go swim at Turkey Creek because
Nice. Yeah.
beat the heat. So I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
it'll
You
be
got to
fun.
get some water involved.
Yeah,
Well, I
yeah,
think
especially.
I love the idea that it originated sort of as spec work a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Spec work in general is such a staple, I feel like, in creative industry. But then it does exactly what you said. It's like this. Here's the type of work I want to do. Well, now here is a way that I can demonstrate my abilities in that space.
Right,
Um, and this, I think you hit the nail on the head with the idea of obviously outdoorsy, but so family friendly kind of
yeah,
design. But then at the same time, it's not like, especially like the shirt that she's wearing in this picture, it doesn't feel elementary. You know what I
right,
mean? It's
yeah,
approachable, it's family friendly, but at the same time, I think it's got that edge or cool factor for like young adults to be able to
right.
wear and promote. I like
Thanks.
it. um, is there a piece that is in your portfolio here on your website that you would love to talk about?
Ooh, that I would love to talk about. We could talk about Imperial Grove. That's the very, very first one on the top
Yeah.
left.
Okay, this is definitely a little bit of a different vibe from your other designs, I feel like,
Yeah,
because it's not as much of a caricature.
right,
It's more of like a mark, I guess I would say.
right. Yeah, so this one also spec work, also passion project. I went to Maine for the first time a couple of years ago and just fell in love. I just adore Maine. It's beautiful. We went to Acadia National Park and it's like beautiful forest right on the edge of the ocean and it's one of the most stunning places that I've ever been to. And this kind of goes along with the glamping thing. I was like, what could I do a brand mascot, but make a brand that's upscale for a hotel or a resort, essentially? And
Yeah,
so started thinking about Maine, and I was like, what if this resort was in Maine? And I had this little sea serpent character that was also like, family friendly, but upscale, essentially.
yeah,
And so came up with Imperial Grove because a ton of like if you do some research on Maine's history, the trees were so tall there that when people first started like logging and things, they would use the trunks for masts for like the king's naval ships because they were so big.
yeah.
And so I was like, it's an imperial grove of trees. And so that's how I came up with the name for the company.
That
And then,
that's beautiful. I mean, it really is. It's a
yeah,
I mean, just I'm so not creative. I feel like whenever I have these kind of conversations, because I'm like, I never would have thought of that. But
yeah,
and I don't feel like I'm patient enough at times to wait till something that good hits in. You know what I mean?
right.
Um,
Yes.
because I do
Um,
think the research and the thinking, like the process of just sort of dissecting all of that information, I don't. I'm curious as to how long that took. Was it? You may be one
yes.
of these that it's like, oh, that they use these trees for masses for the king. Imperial Grove. That makes sense.
No. No, that's what I was gonna say. Like, this is not something that's just like, bam, I have the idea, it's done, it's ready, let's go, let's do it. This is a process. Like, I did research on Maine, not just because of this project, but also because I'm working on a kid's book that's also about Maine. So I had that background research already done when I started this project, and I probably researched that for over a month. Reading internet articles, getting books from the library, taking notes on anything that caught my attention that I was like, "That's a really interesting fact. I haven't heard that before. That's cool." And so I had this big compilation of notes of just things that caught my attention that I could go back through. So when I was figuring out this project, I was like, oh, that was an interesting little tidbit. But no, it's not something that's just like, here you go. Here's the name.
Well, I respect it even more so just because of the fact that I do know it sounds like the amount of time that you put into this, and the fact that it was spec work.
Yeah.
I respect that even more. So props on that. Seriously, I love the
Thanks.
Matchbox. You got
Yeah,
it.
Matt
The
fun.
hotels, the classic hotels, have to have a Matchbox.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think you did a design on your Instagram, like a video that actually showed this
Yeah. I think
process.
it's a little farther
Oh, is it further
down.
down?
Yeah. Keep going. Because it was a little before Christmas that I was working on this.
Was oh, this one right here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that one's designing the hotel, so I had to figure out what the hotel looked
Well,
like.
that's what so I was watching
Yeah,
this
yeah,
where
yeah.
you were using, the content or what is it called now, the AI feature, generative fill.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, generative fill.
yeah, but also you did a great job with recoloring the building. Yeah, I thought this was great. Just being able to see a little bit behind the scenes of what you were able to do, and the fact
Right.
that you were creating this again all for spec work. Um, that's really cool.
Yeah. That
What were
was
you
I wanted to
mentioning?
prove I could do it.
Were you mentioning another place to see some of the
I
process?
think there's a video of me, I think it's that one.
Okay, the
Well,
actual
yeah,
design.
where I'm, like, sketching, this is me at June, sketching out what I wanted the mascot to look like and what some of those iterations of what the branding could look like, um, as I was figuring it out. And I wanted to pair the sea with the forest. And so if you look at the mascot Gilbert, he's got a pine branch that wraps all around through him, so it's like sea and forest together.
Yeah,
Um,
I did notice that. I wasn't necessarily seeing the I guess you're saying sea is in he's from the sea, or is
yeah,
there
like from the
okay.
ocean.
I didn't know if there
Yeah.
was like another sea element to it.
Mhm.
Now
He's a sea serpent, so
I have to ask you, and I don't mean to point this out for any other reason than I'm just interested in it. But the
I
way
know what
that
you're
you
gonna say.
hold the pencil,
Yes.
it it's very unique. I feel
Yep,
like
yep.
to people. Have you ever seen anyone else hold a pencil like this that's an artist? And
Nope.
is there reasoning behind it other than just the way that you've just traditionally held a pencil?
So, I have always held my pencil this way ever since I've been in kindergarten, and I had kindergarten teachers tell me, "You cannot hold your pencil that way. You're never gonna be able to write cursive.
Right?
It's not the right way to hold your pencil," but I don't wanna hold my pencil any other way.
It definitely looks like a little bit of a tight hold on that
Yeah,
pencil.
it does. It does. I feel like I wish I had a pencil right now that I could hold it this way, but, yeah, so I've been told that pretty much my entire life. Anybody who sees me draw anything, they're like, "How are you holding your pencil that way?" I'm like, "It's just the way I'm wired, I guess."
Does it
Um,
hurt your hand to hold it for a long
no.
period of time?
Mm-mm,
Okay, because
mm-mm.
like I'll hold a pencil usually. I
Ha
don't
ha
think I.
ha.
Ah,
I have
look
one.
at you. Yes.
Okay, so I hold my pencil like this,
Yeah.
but it does give me good range of motion. Like, I can get good stroke marks with my wrist
Yeah.
that way.
So
Um,
I usually hold it like in this groove right here.
like
And
most people hold it like this,
yeah,
I feel
I'll go a second finger on top. Yeah.
like.
So
Yeah.
so mine's
Yeah.
almost towards your position, but mine pencils will hurt my finger. It will literally indent. Oh, you got it
Yeah.
too.
Oh, look, I got thumbs up.
So, but I don't know. Pencils over time, pens too, but pencils seem to be even more so because of I guess the harder edges that they have
Yeah.
on their sides. Uh, but yeah, sometimes it can really dig in and hurt because I feel like I do hold a pencil a little too firmly at times. Um,
Yeah.
but anyway, I was just interested in that. I thought it was a very unique way of holding pencil, and I thought that probably helps control your lines a lot better versus like
Yeah.
I feel like if you're just holding it with a single, like just two fingers and resting on the others, I feel like there could be a sense of, maybe the fingers not holding it as tightly and it's straying away from where you intend it. So I didn't know if that was sort of your reasoning behind it, but I doubt you were thinking that way in kindergarten.
No, I was not thinking that way in kindergarten. I was thinking this is feels like a comfortable way to hold my pencil,
I
and it,
like.
I guess, feels stable. I don't know. My mom at the time, I remember going home to her and being upset about it, and she was like, "Look, just learn two ways to hold your pencil, and when the teacher comes, swap to the other way, and then you can go back to holding it however you want. As long as you're getting your work done, I don't care."
Yeah. Well, and it's obvious that it has served you well because
It has.
it's not like you make your living apart from your pencil. You hold it still
No,
that way and you literally
no.
make a living doing that. So,
Yeah. So I guess I can write in cursive and hold my pencil this way.
there you go. Show that teacher who's boss,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's funny. Um, all right, so I want to talk about Sunspark Creative, your
Yes.
actual company. What was sort of the branding idea behind it? And I mean, is this something that comes from, somewhere in your life, or was this more of just like the beauty of it? What's your branding concept behind Sunspark?
Yeah, so when I was leaving Telegraph, I was trying to figure out, what am I going to call my company? I knew I wanted to have a brand mascot, and I was trying to figure out the balance of all of that. And so I will say one of the best ways to get new ideas is to go on a trip.
Yeah,
So I went to Florence, Alabama to hear one of my favorite artists play. Her name is Mackenzie Lockhart. You should look her up on Spotify. She's very tiny. She's very good. And while I was there was a record store, and I was flipping through all of the records, and I was like reading the backs of them. And one of them said it was Sundrop Records. And I was like, ooh, Sundrop's a cool name. I like Sundrop. That kind of sounds like me. So then I came home and I did like a whole mind map on things that sounded kind of like Sundrop. Landed on Sunspark, which I liked better because it's active, like sparking new creative ideas,
yeah,
bringing new light to creative solutions.
yeah.
So I thought
Drop is
that
more
was,
on the down, and
yeah,
Spark is more on the upswing. Yeah,
yeah.
I like
So
that.
that's how I figured out the name. And then the mascot, I was trying to figure out something that kind of went with sun. And so I was looking up symbolism for different birds, and I found a heron. And so herons have a lot of symbolism in different cultures to do with sunlight. And they're also masters of balance because they can stand on one leg for a very long time, and they have excellent vision. Their eyes work kind of like a telescope, like they can hone in on really tiny details. And then they have precision strikes. So like when they go to get the fish, they very rarely miss. And so I liked the idea of being a company that is well balanced between like design and illustration, that can see those tiny details and make those points of execution and like get things done the right way for my clients and help solve those problems. And so that's how I came up with the mascot to go with the name, and then lots of sketching and lots of drawing.
It seemed, I mean, maybe I'm not a brand person, obviously,
Yeah,
but just your whole process of thinking through that is really incredible. And
thanks.
maybe that's par for the course with branding people. I'm sure quite a few of them do some of that kind of stuff at least, but but it's really neat just to hear it sort of thought out
Yeah.
and explained. So, and these art pieces, obviously, some Harry Potter world is
Mhm.
beautiful. The stuff that you have sort of created of it, and then I really love this series because you've got two of them.
Yeah.
Let me pull that up real quick. You can go ahead and sort of explain what it is.
Yeah, the Hidden Giants. Is that what you're
Yes,
talking
that
about?
was it. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So these were really fun. These originally started in a lithography class that I took in college, which is where it's a kind of printmaking process where you draw on a big stone and then you etch into that stone and then you put ink on the stone
Yeah.
and then you can like do prints through it essentially. um, and so for that class I had a great teacher, Sarah Ellis, and she was like asking us to think through things that we really liked. So this is a precursor to Spin Me a Yarn. And I was like, I love mythology, I love things hidden in plain sight, I think that's really fun. And so I came up with this idea of giants hidden in plain sight. And so ended up taking them outside of that class, taking them into Procreate, which is where I did these digital illustrations
Yeah.
and got to add all that extra fun detail in there. But we've got a giant that's got a lighthouse on his head. So if you're in a boat from above, you're not going to know that that island is actually the top of this guy's head. And then the other one is kind of like a Hawaiian island esque scene, and her hair is the waterfall. And I'm very involved with the outdoors. I love things. I love being outside. I love being inspired by nature. I would kind of consider myself an environmentalist. But yeah, it was such a fun project to work on. And then these one Addies, these one the gold Addie.
So
The student.
the waterfall, the Hawaiian
Yeah.
waterfall, that reminds me of Moana. Uh,
Yes, it's very similar to Moana.
yeah, yeah. Now, was this before Moana or after Moana came out?
I want to say it was before, but I'm not 100%
Okay,
sure.
yeah.
Timeline wise.
It looks. I mean, it definitely has sort of a similar vibe, and even that idea of monsters being hidden in or not monsters, but giants being hidden
Nice.
in plain sight. That's sort of the whole, I think, thought of Moana's. I guess she's sort of the villain, but then also ends up being sort of the victim all at the same time
Yeah,
in
yeah,
that one. So
Tafiti.
yes,
Yeah, uh-huh.
yeah. So I mean, again, and I even said earlier, like so many of yours do have that sort of respect for Disney kind of
Yeah.
feel to it. But yeah, I thought this was beautiful. And then just for the sake of because I did mention it, I'm a fan of Harry Potter. Love
Same.
the stories. My daughters are, especially one of my daughters, the twins, like huge fan of Harry Potter. Even my son has read all of the Harry Potters, and these are beautiful. I can imagine people wanting these as prints potentially in their house
Yeah.
or in their room. Have you sold any of this as prints?
I haven't. I
Okay,
need to.
all right,
This was a COVID project. So they had, if you're on art Instagram for a while, they did this week that every week in July they would have a series of prompts that would come out that were the Potter Week prompts. And they would tell you in advance like what, like a word that would inspire whatever your drawing was. And they tell you this like months in advance. So you had time to like draw them, so you're not doing all of this in a week, but
right.
you're supposed to post it within a week. So I think the car one was transport. The Buckbeak in the Garden one was in the garden. I don't know if I remember what the Ron Hermione was. Maybe Invisible,
Okay,
because
yeah,
that one
because the
he's like
things are
playing with
being
his,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. And then the snake one was venomous. And then I don't know if I can remember what the other two were off the top of my head, but they were so fun to work on and to draw. And it was like I was home and I didn't have things to do. And I was like, I'm just going to sit and make art for something that I love. I was a Harry Potter kid. I grew up with the audiobooks because my mom was like, we're not having a TV in your room, but you can have a CD player. And so I had the Harry Potter audiobooks. And so I would listen to them on repeat over and over again. So I'm oddly good at Harry Potter trivia because I heard them so many times.
Yeah, my daughter Taylor, she would love these, and she's the one that read the books over and over again,
Yeah.
and watched the movies over and over again. So
Hmm.
she can tell you all the trivia kind of stuff. Y'all, the two of y'all would probably give each other a run for your money
Yeah.
on the trivia part. So, but no, I thought both of those were just beautiful pieces that were in your portfolio. Well, that's really cool about the Sunspark Creative. I think that's just a beautiful way to describe sort of the thought behind the brand. Is there anything particular? I mean, we've talked about your process a decent bit, but is there anything particular about your process that you feel like is either unique or maybe really essential, like the most important part?
I think story is big for me. So I love working with people that have a story to tell and maybe they don't know the right way to go about telling it, but they can bring those details to me and then I can help them make something that's very unique that's going to bring their story to life.
Yeah. Well, story seems to be almost the trying to think of what the fulcrum, I guess, is that the right way to say it? The
Yeah.
what so much of creative work sort of pivots on. It does drive so much of what we do in general is story.
Right.
That's cool to see it in design. Okay, so this is something I've been wanting to talk about the whole time we've been talking.
Yes.
This was actually what prompted me to reach out to you. At least this is sort of the first thing I think that I saw of yours, and I was like, I've got to just reach out to her. I would love to have her on the podcast. It's one of those things that I think what you're doing is somewhat similar in the same vein as to what I'm trying to do on here, and it's just to bring attention to creatives in general in the Birmingham area and the work they're doing. So I loved just your vision for it. Also, I love your personality, at least that came through on the video. I'll go ahead and sort of pull that up here. Um, the personality just seemed perfect and just genuine, but then at the same time so energetic. So
Good.
all right, so tell us a little bit about what Spark with Savvy is and how it's gone so far. I know from what I understand, you've got some already recorded.
Yeah.
Have those
Yeah.
been released anywhere?
Not
Okay,
yet, but
okay,
they're coming very soon.
yeah, yeah. Well, tell us about it.
So Spark with Savvy came from a little bit of what I was talking about earlier, where it's like building a creative community. And from my time living in Birmingham, I've met so many really creative people. And I wanted to be able to highlight them. And this was a concept that Miranda came up with when she was helping me figure out my digital marketing. And she was like, we could do an interview series with all of these people. She's like, I hear you talk about them all the time and how cool they are. She's like, what if we did an interview series where you're going to a coffee shop because you go there anyway so much, and you meet up with them, you find out what their story is, what lights them up inside, what makes them excited to work on like projects that they've loved, who their ideal client in the city is, and then it's a promotion for them, helps them get the views on their work that they need, maybe helps them talk to a client that they wouldn't have reached before, and also it helps you because you're like bringing them together with your stuff, and so like maybe we can collaborate on things in the future, and that really just helps more work go around the city overall, and it helps people get to the work that they need that's going to be beautiful and it's going to be well done, because like the people I'm talking to, it's like they're amazing at what they do, and I'm so excited to show off their skills.
How many have you been able to talk to so far?
So I've talked to 3 so far, but I've got several other ones in the lineup, and then so many. So in that video, I had people comment their favorite creative down below who
Right.
needed more appreciation. So now I've got like a whole set list, and I've got to go through and figure out who's going to go win. We might do it in different seasons because I want to have enough of a variety, because like right now we've got a ton of photographers and I want to highlight all of them because they're so cool.
Yeah.
But I want to do like screen printers, designers, illustrators, photographers, videographers, the run of it.
Well, and I really did mean what I said in the comment is I just appreciate the fact that more people are recognizing and bringing attention to the incredible creatives that we do have in the Birmingham area.
100%.
Not just their work, but them as people. So many of
Right.
the people that I've been able to talk to. I mean, Brian Curtin, I use him as an example all the time, and I would say Billy Ivy's like this too. These are people that have like reached levels in their career that I've only imagined for myself, never probably even seen a path to those levels. But then you talk to them and they're not that standoffish, aloof person. They're so humble, they're so kind, they're genuinely interested in what you're doing and your
Right.
platform. But then at the same time, they're like really just talented, impressive, experienced people. So Birmingham, and I think this is probably people everywhere, but it's neat to see it in Birmingham. It's neat to see the talents we have, but then also just the genuinely kind people.
Yeah, we have a really good community here,
Yeah,
and it's fun, like you said, like to hear they're not just somebody who's won this award or did this big thing. Like they've got their own story, and it's fun to see what goes into making them tick too.
yeah. Well, I look forward to seeing it. I definitely look forward to seeing those the three you've already got and the many more to
Yeah,
come. So
yeah,
that's cool. And as far as like the sort of getting your name or your brand out there also, that's something that I've seen so much with this. I'm not, I don't really know where this is going for me as far as like the Creating Creators podcast, but for me it's just neat to know that people are seeing it and interacting with it. But then also, I was talking with Kristen Dober at Big,
yeah.
and she said, I've mentioned this on a few, so people that watch these are probably like, oh goodness, here he goes again. But but she was talking about her and Seth Newell.
Mm.
That he's with Alagripco, and the two of them were sitting down having coffee one day talking about Creating Careers podcast. And I was like, that's
So
incredible. Yeah,
cool.
it is, isn't it? Like the idea that somebody would even, first of all, know about it, that somebody that I respect, but then
Right.
also the fact that the two of them would have been sitting down randomly talking about it. I mean, I think it helped that Kristen was going to be on the episode, like I was going to be recording her episode later that
Yeah.
day. But still, it was really neat. So
That is really neat, especially it's like when you're working on stuff that it's like just you in your living room, really.
yeah.
And it's like it's weird when you start to see it come to life outside of effort that you've put in. I mean, I guess it's a culmination of effort that you've put in, but still to like see it take on its own form and people talk about it and it becomes a thing and that's fun.
Well,
And it feels good.
I look forward to seeing your personality on there because that's something with my platform. I feel like my personality it 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 sort of fades into the background at times, which is a good thing. But for yours, like the liveliness, the energy, I think it's going to be really cool. Now, no pressure on keeping that up all the time. So
Nah, this just how I am, really.
I get that. I get that. But I like it, and hopefully, coffee will help.
Yes.
Coffee, especially for this one, 8 o'clock this morning. Usually, 8 o'clock's not a problem for me. Today, for some reason, I woke up at like 7:15, and my
Yeah.
eyes were so like they're probably still puffy and red, and I was like, oh my gosh, what is wrong with me? And I was like, I've got to not look like I just rolled out of bed.
Right.
But yeah, coffee definitely helps in coffee shops. I think will help. Is there
Yes. I think
anything specific that you would like to say about Spark with Savvy? Just for the audience. I mean, obviously, I would say if anybody, especially those creatives that frequent coffee shops in the
yeah.
Birmingham area, which I would imagine you're probably willing to go beyond Birmingham if you need to,
Sure. Yeah.
uh, but I would say like if the opportunity is there, message you and join in
Yeah.
and be a part of it.
100%. Yeah, and if you see me at a coffee shop, come say hi. I would love to say hi. Yeah, if you want to be involved with it, go give us a shout on our Instagram, sunspark.creative, and we may just interview you next, and it would be so fun. One thing I am looking forward to is the blooper reel because we get very silly, and I know we're not going to be able to include everything in our videos, but I want to do a blooper reel of us just having a good time because really it's very similar to this kind of a vibe where we're just sitting down, we're having a conversation, we're talking about fun things. I send people questions in advance so they kind of know a little bit what we're going to talk about beforehand.
People appreciate that. I don't do
Yeah.
that.
But you make a very comfortable environment, so it
Good.
feels easy to talk.
Good.
But yeah, I think it's going to be really fun, and I'm excited to see what happens, and I think that you guys should come be a part of it too.
Oh, I would love to.
Yeah.
I don't know that was.
I'll interview you. You can come be a part of the podcast.
That may have not been you when you said you guys. You're probably talking to the
I
audience.
mean, everyone who's listening to this, and you're included.
Perfect. Yeah, that sounds great. I think it's really neat. Again, like just the idea of celebrating people. If people wanted to work with you and maybe hire work with you in a freelance capacity, how could they go about doing that?
Yeah, so you can find me at sunsparkcreative.co. And when you go to that website, you'll go to the contact page and you can shoot me there's like a submission form where you can fill out and shoot me an email. And I will get back with you very soon and we can get you scheduled in and we can make a lot of fun stuff together.
Well, I think personally for me, I would love to talk with you about that, and that may be something we can, if you've got time after this
Yeah,
conversation. I would love to potentially talk with you about some work we could do together because I think that would be really
100%.
cool. First part of it would be my personal brand
Yeah,
that I'm working on. I've got sort of like a freelance, potentially moving full time into kind of opportunity that I would like to talk with you about because I desperately need help with branding.
well, I can help you there.
Awesome. Yes, you can. Just seeing what you do, I definitely believe that. All right. So you touched on some of this early on about some tips, but I just want to revisit it, just give you some more opportunity to say something. But is there any specific tips or advice that you would offer beginners, people that are
Like,
well, aspiring creatives,
okay.
aspiring branding, um, maybe brand specific creatives, graphic designers? I mean, I love the way that you got involved in it, and I loved what you said about new to Birmingham and how working at an agency was really beneficial to you. But anyway, is there any other kind of advice that you would give to people? And really, it can be directed towards any audience that you sort of see fit.
Yeah. So if you want to get into design and you don't really know where to start, then I would recommend start really paying attention to what you like, whether that's at bookstores, if you notice covers that you really like, if it's on Pinterest, like start making boards, start looking up, if you find an illustrator you like, start gathering a bunch of things that light you up inside when you see it. You're like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. I love that. Whether it's type, whether it's illustration, and then pay attention to that because that's going to inform kind of your decision of where you want to go and how you want to grow as a designer or as an artist. And then I recommend practicing as much as you can, looking at art that other people have done and seeing if you can redraw it. This isn't stuff that you're going to share on social and be like, I made this thing. Like, this is, somebody else made this. But you can be kind of an apprentice and learn from the masters of people that are really good at what they do and try and emulate that. And then long term, your practice plus the culmination of all of the different things that you enjoy kind of become your style over time.
I like it.
Um,
I mean,
yeah,
I think the idea of copying people. I've always said if you copy enough people and you start introducing all of those copied elements into a new piece, suddenly it's not copying people anymore. It's the
right.
influences, the unique recipe of influences that you've sort of received now going into this new unique creation. So I think that's always great advice to do, and just sort of consuming great design will help you produce great design.
Right.
Yeah.
100%.
And I would say it would be helpful to go to a sip and sketch.
Yes, you should.
And
You should come.
these are held at Create Beham, right? That's the or Make Beham. I'm sorry, Make
Make
Beham.
Ham.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's
Hmm.
in is that in what's that area called?
It's in
Avondale.
Avondale.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yeah, right over
Yep.
there by well, is Big Spoon still over
Yeah.
there? Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same building complex. So we do these once a month, and you bring a fun drink and you bring a fun attitude, and we're gonna work together. And how we've done it so far is the first class we did was a piece of fruit. So I teach you guys how to draw a piece of fruit, any kind of fruit you like, and then I teach you how to turn it into a character. And then as we go through that process, you learn all about the different things that you're capable of doing in Procreate, whether that's settings, color picking, selection, and it really just gets people very comfortable with the interface. It's a very friendly, open-ended class, so I'll work on something, I'll ask people if they have questions. People can kind of be like, oh, hey, I'm always curious if you could do XYZ, and we'll stop, we'll talk about it. It's a great environment. People come and have a lot of fun. I have a lot of fun being there and learning from them too.
Does it
Yeah,
cost anything?
it does. I think it's about $60
Okay.
on the Make website.
Yeah.
Double check that though, because I'm not 100%.
Okay.
But it's fun. You got to bring an iPad, bring a pencil, Apple Pencil. But if you don't have one, message Hannah at Make, and she will let you guys know if we've talked about maybe getting some at Make if enough people are like, hey, we would love to do this, but we don't have an iPad. So let her know, and we'll see what we can do.
Yeah. Is this Apple? These two Apple characters, or is this one of
Yeah,
the examples of what the type of
yeah.
thing
So
you
that
might do?
was that was the one that we did in class last time, and I go through like a couple different ways of showing people how they can add character and emotion to these different creatures that we're making. And so those were two different ones. I was like, if you want to make it really simple, it could look like the apple on the right, and then like if you wanted to make it more detailed and adding emotion and that kind of thing, it's really fun. Oh, also we did a team up with a screen printing class, so we did Procreate for screen printing. And so I help everybody make their design in Procreate the first night, and then you would come back for the second night, and then they have a screen printing instructor teach you guys how to screen print it on T-shirts or tote bags or all that fun stuff.
That's cool. That
Yeah,
and then I mean, did they actually leave with something that they've screen
yeah.
printed?
And then you get to take it home, and
That's
that's
cool.
fun.
That sounds like a really cool project. All right, so what's next? What's next for just Savvy in general? What's next for Sunspark Creative? What do you see on the horizon?
Ooh, that's such a good question. Spark with Savvy's definitely big right now, and that's kind of where my main point of focus is. Lots of fun new branding projects coming down the pike that I'm excited to share with you guys, and some merch design too, which I've been hired to do for some other local people that I'm excited to share. And then long term, I'm looking into getting into more kids' books. I'm working on a book about a fox that goes to different national parks and then teaches the kids about what he's learned there. His name is Finnegan Fox. And the first book that I'm working on was inspired by Maine, because I went to Maine and Acadia National Park and all of the fun trails that you can go on there and the animals that you can see. And I think it's a really great little resource for kids to get them excited about exploring and being outside.
When you go on these trips, like when you went to Maine, did you go
Yeah.
on those trails? And then do you actually like take a sketchbook? Do you take do you actually sketch while there? Or is it more of like after you go, then you come back and either memory or online research or pictures that you've taken, do you sketch sort of after the fact?
Yeah, so definitely a combination of all of those things. So take your camera with you, take lots of pictures of anything you find interesting. Like if you see a cool leaf, if you happen to see something in the underbrush that's neat, the big landscapes. Like try and get small details and big details at the same time. I do carry a sketchbook, so like sometimes we would go and like have lunch on the cliffs, like overlooking the ocean, and like see the seagulls. They have seagulls there that are huge and they're not scared of you. And so they would like come sit next to you so you could like quick sketch something there. And then definitely online research is your friend. Definitely looked up a ton of reference images after I left, but it helped that I already had the bank of photography that I took while I was there and sketches that I took while I was there. But yeah, so all of the above.
That seems like a really neat process just because of the fact that you're getting to explore these locations that you're interested in already. And then on top of that, you're doing it with such an eye for like almost like an intentional eye.
Mhm.
So you're capturing those little details that a lot of times people would just walk right over and ignore.
Right. And I think it helps you to appreciate where you're at when you're coming at it from that viewpoint instead of thinking, where am I going to get lunch? Oh, I've got a pebble in my shoe. This is uncomfortable. Like it helps keep you in the moment, and it helps you to appreciate where you are and who you're with and enjoy the time that you have there.
That's cool. Oftentimes with my craft, it's video, and I feel like it can separate you from the scene, if that makes sense. Because it does. It literally becomes almost a barrier between you and being a part of like in the environment or
Right.
the activity, and so oftentimes I'll catch myself videoing family vacations, and then I realize like this is hindering me from actually vacationing with my family. But I think the idea of design, at least the way that it sounds like these books are going, like you're noticing these details while you're experiencing it still. I mean, you still have the camera occasionally, but a photo versus video, I feel like isn't quite as pulling somebody out of a element.
I would agree. I think there's different ways to look at it and to view it. I think the nice thing about just taking a picture is like take a picture, put your phone away.
Hmm.
Like try to not stay in it as much as you can because you're right. It will inevitably create a barrier if you're just on your screen the whole time and you're not interacting with your environment. But
Yeah. I think next time I go on a trip, I'm gonna try and do selfie video the whole time.
there you
That way, it doesn't take me out as much. Yeah, I don't know. That probably
go.
would be more of a problem, and I can imagine my daughters would be quite annoyed by it really quickly.
But I feel like too, even with you doing that much video though, like you'll really like having that years down the road. Like you'll be able to go back and you'll be able to appreciate it and you'll be able to be in that moment again because you did take the time to video it.
Oh,
So
definitely, definitely. My kids will have way too much social media content and YouTube videos of our family to be able to go back and look at, and they'll be like, "Where was Dad? He was
Miss
behind the camera."
Monoran.
So my childhood's very similar to that. My dad had a camcorder and would video constantly, and so looking back at the childhood videos, so much of it was uh, me, my sister, my mom, but then where's dad? Oh, well, dad. And then sometimes my dad would be that creepy guy that would put the camera down, point it in a specific direction, and then go be on camera himself. And I'm like, oh, there you go. So, and then
There
he
he
would,
is.
he would be looking at the camera while doing something, making sure that he was in frame. So it's funny.
But I mean, then at least you get to see him.
Oh,
I mean, I
definitely.
want him to be included.
Definitely. Yeah. It's funny. And now I see myself doing some of that same stuff. And then, we're never too far from being our parents, I think.
No, I agree. I think we're a culmination of our parents and our five closest friends, and then you get something unique there.
That's very true. Very true. Well, then, so that's really cool. The books. I look forward to just seeing some social content about those as we get
Yeah.
closer to those dates. And definitely, like I said, I will be watching for all the stuff with Spark with Savvy. I look forward to seeing those things. All right. So, last question: who inspires you? And I do this sort of twofold. First, I always wonder like where does your inspiration come from? Who do you look at and admire? But then also, I'm curious as to like local people that maybe you work with that really pushes you in new directions and pushes you sort of further than you have been before in your work. And I look at those people a lot of times for potentially down the road somebody that I could interview. So twofold. I'm not really good at giving questions because I end up throwing way too many questions at one time. But in general, who inspires you, both just in your work in general and then locally?
Okay. In general, um, I think I got very into like going to the national parks and wanting to do illustrations inspired that because of the 59 States Parks brand. They do illustrated screen printed posters, some beautiful work. And I found them originally because I took a game board design class, and they have this board game called Parks. And in it, you can go explore all of the different national parks and like collect them and take pictures and get like elements along the way, and it's like a very fun game, but the illustrations in it are just stunning,
What was the
mind
name of the
blowing.
brand?
It's called the 59 State Parks brand.
59 state parks?
Uh-huh. Mhm.
Is that something I can find on Instagram or?
You should be able to. Let me make sure I'm maybe it's just 59 parks. Or you might just Google it. They have a website.
Okay.
Yeah, 59 parks. That's what it is.
59 parks. And that's also on Instagram?
It's definitely if you Google it. Let me see. Yeah, 59 parks, no spaces. They're on Instagram.
Okay, so I do have the website. It's not
Ah, there
closed
we
until
go.
November, but okay. So
But they make
this was sort of
beautiful.
inspiration.
Yeah. So they definitely inspired me because I was like, I want to make stuff that looks like that. Um,
That poster
so
of
well
Big
done.
Sur looks incredible. That's really cool.
So good. It's so good. And then right next to it, that Parks game, that's their board game. That's from where I originally found them. Um, so yeah, they bring a ton of different artists together to work on these. So it's not just one person. One of their artists that I really like, their company's called Brave the Woods, and he's got some incredible stuff. And they're also very like educational focused, family focused, but they make beautiful things that anybody could appreciate, really.
That's cool.
So that's something that inspires me outside of local people. Somebody who was a big inspiration to me when I moved to Birmingham is Shannon Clark, who started Supernaut.
Yes.
She, yes,
Yeah.
she's great. She was at Telegraph when I first started and really took me under her wing and was really encouraging and was a great sounding board when I was working on Spin Me a Yarn and I could bring her stuff. And she always had great ideas and was really good at being like very encouraging and positive. And I love what she's doing with Supernaut. I think that's so cool, to bring other local creatives together, because it's kind of like an agency what she's doing, but everybody's freelance.
Right.
So it's kind of best of both worlds where you have the freedom to do things the way you like to do it, but you also have that network of creative people and community, to make some really fun stuff.
Yeah, Jannard told me about that whenever I interviewed him, because
Yeah.
he's involved in that as well, and seems like a really cool collective. I guess if I don't know if that's the right term versus agency, I'm not sure, but it sounds really helpful for a lot of people that are creatives, but then also businesses get sort of this unique recipe that's tailored specifically to them as far as like the types of creatives that they're going to be working with. They don't just rely on, well, who does that agency have in house or who does that agency always work with? They've got, the ability to tailor it to the specific client.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is very cool. A neat way to look at things. So I think that they're going to do some really fun stuff that I'm excited to see.
Yeah. Well, and she was recommended, I think, whenever Jannard, when I interviewed him, he
Yeah.
told me like she's impressive. So I've definitely got to get her on if I can.
Yeah. You got double recommendations.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, let me say this, Savvy, thank you so much for just being a part of this today. I know it sounds like you've got a lot of work that you're currently working on and probably client work constantly coming in. So I appreciate you taking the time to just talk with me today. It was really enjoyable.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you asked me, and I had so much fun chatting with you.
And your work is beautiful. I really love it. And I say that not just gloating on people. I mean, I seriously admire what you do. I think I respect sort of the grind that you've done in especially the spec work we talked about, because like some people, whenever they say spec work, they just go out and they shoot some stuff, especially in the video space, without there being much like rhyme or reason, or without there being much, work on the front end. And it seems like the spec work that you've done, first of all, is very intentional, and second of all, very well thought out and meticulously sort of curated. So props on all of that.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. I think it helps too, like, if you're taking the time to do something and you want it to go forward and help you with whatever your goals are, whether that's business or getting a good client or something that you're excited about, to be like, I'm taking time to do this. I want to make something that's worthwhile. I mean, you don't want to like take time and then waste it on your spec work. So I think that that does help it when you're figuring out what you want to do and the intention that goes behind it.
Yeah. And
But
spec work is so valuable, I think, just in
yes,
general, in any creative industry.
right.
Yeah.
Agreed.
All right. Well, thank you so much again, Savvy. I appreciate you.
Yes.